Leeds United last won the League Championship trophy in the Revie era in 1974. Under Howard Wilkinson, Leeds have become the last champions of the Football League in its current form. Today's Footballers' Football Show examines Leeds United, past, present and future.
They're going to have the biggest party of the year at Elland Road this weekend. Leeds United, champions again after an 18-year wait, and that success thoroughly deserved. Last week we put Manchester United under the spotlight. This week it's Leeds' turn. Our guests, what a lineup as well. Billy Bremner, Leeds' fiery skipper, who was such an inspiration during the, I say Revie, some say Revie, but the Revie era. He returned to manage the club for 3 years in the 80s. Johnny Giles was Billy's midfield partner during the glory years. Johnny was widely accepted to be one of the best footballers of his generation. Norman's stopped biting legs now. Norman Hunter, one of the most feared defenders ever. Norman was the backbone with Big Jack of Revie's team. And Barry Foster is here. Barry works for the Yorkshire Post. He's followed Leeds for the last 25 years. Like David Meek with Manchester United, he's seen it all during that time, and where better to start? Success thoroughly deserved, Barry.
I think so. It's when you stop and think, he's not been there 4 years, but he's spent a lot of money and it's come off for him.
He's recouped a lot of money, in fairness.
Well, he's spent just over 10 million. He's recouped about 6 million. So when you, as Leslie Silver, the chairman, says, when you put it in that way, it's really cost him next to nothing.
I read, I think over the weekend, that many at Elland Road, even a fortnight ago, didn't really believe that it was possible. Did you?
No, I didn't think it was going to be possible, but somebody says it's a funny game, this, don't they?
Isn't it just? Let's welcome our panel, Johnny Giles, Billy Bremner and Norman Hunter. What a job he's done.
Yeah, I did the commentating at the end. I've watched him all season. And like you said about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't think that Thornton would win the title because Blarney should have gone over to Old Trafford. But they wobbled, and then once Leeds got their nose in front, they didn't. They won the last 3 games, and that was enough.
Cool customer, Billy, isn't he? Had lunch, didn't watch on Sunday afternoon. Waited to find out.
Well, Howard's done tremendously well. I mean, people always say, well, he's had the money to spend and previous managers didn't have the money. That's a factor. But, I mean, there's a lot of people who's had money and never spent it wisely. I think he spent very well. He bought some very good players in. And thoroughly deserved the championship win this year, considering, you know, like everyone realises, Manchester United really have, at the end of the day, have come into a different form towards the back end of the season, plus the fact that at that particular stage they lost Robson from the side, and then the last 2 games, Ince and Parker, you know, and these are major factors. You can lose players, but certain players that are very important to your team, and unfortunately they lost vital members of the team.
Johnny, as you look at that trophy behind us, steeped with years and years and years of tradition, and it's back at Elland Road. I mean, even now, has it sunk in?
No, I don't think, I think like most other people, I didn't really expect Manchester Leeds United to win it, say, even 10 days before the end of the season, because Manchester United were in a very powerful position, and they only had to half do their stuff, really, to win the championship. They didn't do it, and Leeds pegged away, especially in the last few matches. They did have their own bad spell leading up to the end of the season as well. At times I saw them, they didn't look like champions, I must say. But at the end, when they did get the chance to win it, it is won over the 41 or 42 match whenever it's played now, and the team that wins it over that period of time deserve it, and in the end they did deserve to win it.
I understand the confusion. How many games is it? It's changed so much in recent years.
Yeah.
That's it.
One of the important factors in this has been Howard Wilkinson's attitude during the sort of latter stages. He's tried to be relaxed. He's tried to put that kind of feeling within the dressing room.
He's certainly given me the impression that he's relaxed. Has he you? Has he been?
Oh, yes.
You know him probably better than most here.
Most definitely. It's come over in a way that, well, you would have thought that he would be quite used to winning Football League championships. He's given the impression that he does it every week of the, you know,
to be fair though, Barry, there, I think the pressure has been on Manchester United a lot more than Leeds United this year. The 25-year business. And I think Howard, even 2 or 3 months ago, didn't really expect to win the league. I don't think he expected, okay, I know he kept going, which was quite right, and he got the team right, and plugged away, hoping that Manchester United would slip up like they did. But I don't think there was the same pressure on him as there was on Alex Ferguson. I don't think so.
I mean, we've talked more about what, at the moment, are the runners-up. Sheffield Wednesday might pinch that prize, but everybody's talked more about Manchester United this year than the champions, haven't they?
Yeah, I would think so, because I mean the majority of the time, like, we know more than anybody, us three sitting here, we can feel for the Manchester United players at this particular time, because I mean they've had a situation where they've come out for the main one that they were interested in, the one that everybody's talked about throughout the year, and they've come out disappointed. We've had that on numerous occasions.
5 times, was it?
Yeah, and we know how disappointing it is, and I feel particularly sorry for Alec and the players, because of the circumstances towards the back end where they lost out, but also for the fact that, you know, I look at Brian Robson and I think, you know, what a marvellous career he's had up to date. I mean, I'm not saying that he's probably going to pack in, but it gets harder. I mean, Brian's, I think, maybe 35 now, and he still hasn't won the Football League Championship.
Well, let's have a look at one or two of the key Leeds United players. The backbone to the success in many ways has been this fella, hasn't it? John Lukic, the only one of the squad who's been the course before. Long been rated one of the best keepers in Britain, but only just forced his way into the England reckoning. £1 million steal from Arsenal, where, of course, as I say, he'd also won the title. John Lukic, very good goalkeeper. David Batty, who's got Leeds United in his blood, local lad. Supported them from the terraces all his life. Some say Bremner reincarnated. Not sure. Ball winner, playmaker, England international, of course. Now, this fella, Gordon Strachan, surplus to requirements at Old Trafford. Since then, he's gone on to become Footballer of the Year and Captain of Scotland, of course. Howard Wilkinson's most inspired signing? I would think so. We'll see what the boys think in a moment. Gary McAllister. Wilco won the race to sign him for the bargain fee of £1 million from Leicester City. A Scottish international now, of course. A player who many rave about. Real international footballer in every sense. And LEE CHAPMAN, 20 goals in total this season, 16 in the league, despite 6 weeks out with a broken wrist. In this match, of course, against Manchester United, the FA Cup tie. Cloughy's loss at Nottingham Forest was certainly Leeds' gain. Highest scorer in the First Division in all competitions last year. Real battler. And Howard Wilkinson took over at Elland Road in October 1988 when they were 21st in the Second Division. And that puts, I think, the achievement into some form of perspective, doesn't it? Less than 4 years?
Yes, 3.5 years, and it's something of another fairy tale. It was a fairy tale situation when Revie did it, and it's happened again. And I think this season, when you think back, Leeds have had some serious injuries along the way. They've done
more so than Chapman.
Well, they started with Mel Sterland at the beginning of the season. He had a hernia operation. He missed the start of the season. The season was just getting going, and then Rod Wallace had an injury which kept him out for something of the order about 9 matches. And LEE CHAPMAN with his left wrist. It's not been an easy season.
You say Revie as well, which I find interesting. What is it, Revie or Revie, for goodness sake?
Well, we've always called him Revie. But
yeah, you call them Revie, we call them Gaffer.
You're the only one who could get away with Revie, eh? What about some of these signings then? John Lukic, £1 million, great buy, wasn't it?
he's done well. He's to have him behind you, you know, when you're not playing so well, and he comes for the cross as well. He's done everything this season, and certain times Leeds haven't played so well, and people have broke through, and he's made vital saves at vital times. He deserves to get his chance and have a go for it again.
We obviously can't ask Billy about David Batty, Johnny, but as I said, some say Bremner reincarnated.
Well, I think you're obviously going to get those comparisons in relation to the other players. And I do think David Batty is a very fine player in what he does. He's a very good winner of the ball. He's very good attitude, and I think he was a big driving force for Leeds in the last few matches particularly, and he's done extremely well. But I think it isn't right to compare him with Billy in that Billy was as tenacious as Batty is, but where he would have the edge in a big way, Billy, in my opinion, is that he was much more creative on the ball. And Billy, in fact, was very adventurous, sometimes over-adventurous, according to some of our lads, in the way he played. But that was to make up for me, I suppose. I was probably a little bit too cautious in the way I played. But in relation to Batty, Billy would hit more good passes, I think, in one match than Batty would try in quite a few. And I do hope that Batty does improve his game in that respect. I think if he expects more from himself, There's a lot more there than he's given in a creative sense, and I think if he expects it from himself, then he could do it and become a real force in the game. But I don't think, certainly at this stage in his career, that you could compare him with Billy.
What about Gordon Strachan, Bill? Boots on the other foot here. Don Revie went to Manchester United and signed Johnny Giles. Vital signing he subsequently proved to be. Same with Gordon Strachan, wasn't it, for Howard Wilkinson?
Yeah, I mean, he's done well since he went to Elland Road. Not only with his performance on the park, because Leeds are the type of team, that I wouldn't say that they've got a direct game, but at certain times they try to hit Big Chapman. But whenever they play, and there's only one fella that does it, and that's a little fella Strachan, he puts his foot on the ball, and he's quite inspirational. He makes clever passes. His motivation to the other players this year has been tremendous. What I've seen, the 3 games I've seen, and plus the ones on television. One of these type of players that early doors in his career, like all good players, and Gordon's a very, very good player. Like all good players, they mature as they get older, and he has got better and better as the years have gone on, until he's at the state that he is at the moment, where he's going to be leading Scotland into the European Championships in the summer.
What is it about the Scots, eh?
Well, he's got one. It got to be. He can control the ball and pass it. He's a good player, and that stands out, as Billy says. When Leeds knock it about and play football, the little fellow is the one that puts his foot on it, can slow it down, and can get them playing. It's because he can control it and he can pass the ball.
There was a moment in that match at Sheffield United on Sunday where it needed someone to think quickly, and the captain took the free kick quickly just before the interval. It brought the goal. It was a messy goal, but it brought the goal. It turned the match.
All goals are good goals.
It turned the match.
Especially when you win 3-2.
They're all messy goals.
Well, yes, it turned the match around, and in the goal incident, Sheffield United's keeper was hurt, and he struggled throughout the second half. And for me, Leeds' goals in the second half might not have come about had the goalkeeper been fully fit.
I think maybe the biggest compliment we can give Gordon is the fact that I think Gordon, the majority of footballers nowadays, the older footballers, are all generally of the opinion that standards have dropped tremendously over the past 10 years. But I think Gordon would have been a good player in any era, and I think that's the highest compliment you can give him.
Indeed.
I think it's vital to the Leeds, to the way Howard Wilkinson actually plays the game. I think there's great resilience in the team, great passion, great pace to the game. At times, for me, it could be a little bit more constructive. But I think when you've got the likes of Gordon Strachan in the team, when the ball does fall to him, then you're going to get creative stuff, and McAllister to a less extent. And I think without Strachan in particular, then you would have too much hurry-scurry to do what needs to be done. But he is a class player. As Billy said, he could play in any year. He controls the ball, he passes the ball, he's intelligent, he's busy, and obviously has a good attitude. If he didn't have a good attitude, he wouldn't be playing.
He's got the bananas as well, which is the key to You see, that was the mistake.
It's a growth, though, that's it.
Well, what's wrong with that? No. We didn't have bananas when we
What about McAllister, who's wearing your jersey, of course?
Well, I think McAllister's a good player, good skillful player, and along with Strachan needs that in the middle of the field. He is a constructive player. I think at times he doesn't influence the game as much as he should when it's at a crucial stage. And I find that watching him play, as Leeds gets better, the team gets better, he gets better. And if they're winning 2-0, he's better than when it was no score. So I would like to see him be more influential.
You want to see him play when they're 2-0 down?
I want to see him play better when they're 2-0 down, or influence the game when it's no score.
Lee Chapman. I, like many, thought that the chances of the title had gone, I must say, around that period of the trilogy when they played Manchester United in the Wembley's and then the FA Cup, and then he got injured. And you felt then that maybe it was all slipping away from Leeds. I mean, he is so important, isn't he?
Well, at times he doesn't look the most comfortable player, sometimes his touch lets him down, but in and around the box I've sat and watched him, and he knows where he's going to go, he knows what he's got to do. He's a very intelligent player, and if you look at his record, he's going to get his 20-odd goals a year, and he's done it all his career, and he would be a big miss. And when he was out, that is when Leeds struggled out.
Nobody Jones in that respect.
I mean, George's touch wasn't bad. George's touch was good up front.
One of the unsung heroes, wasn't he?
Maybe in some people's eyes, certainly not in the players' eyes that played with him or the players that played against him, but Lee Chapman is the type of player I think that There's a few in our era, like Hugh Curran and people like that came alive when he was actually in the box. His contribution to the general play left a little bit to be desired, but when actually he got the ball into the box, then he started learning his core, and that's what the boy Chapman did. You put the ball in the box, he'll go and win it. He'll either score goals or he'll knock them down for other people to score.
I think the big thing is to say about Chapman, there'd been no championship if he hadn't been in the side. 20 goals. He's done it regularly. You can count on him hitting the target, even if he doesn't actually put the ball in the net. 90% of the time he'll hit the target. And for me, I know a lot of people, well, just about all of my profession went for Guy Lineker, but from a local point of view, Lee Chapman has got to be my footballer of the year.
You got your vote.
You got my vote.
I wouldn't expect you to say anything else. You'd be drummed out of here if you didn't say anything else.
But just to get backwards on the Mick Jones business, as you say, he was an unsung hero in our team. I think because there were so many great players in it, and Mick wasn't a pushy type of lad. But I think if Mick was playing in today's game, he would be rated, in my opinion, about £3 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of doubt.
Well, it's the nostalgia that we're getting around to. You know,
Nostalgia, I think that's it. And this is not, and I think you can gather from us, this is not three old guys who are bitter and have any regrets about the game. We all enjoyed our time. We had it. We no regrets about it. Good luck to the lads who are doing it today at Leeds. To McAllister and Strachan and all these guys, good luck to them, and to Howard Wilkinson. They've done extremely well, and we do pay tribute to that. But I think it would be less than honest of us if we came on here to say, well, everything was great today, and it was, you know,
that's absolutely right. You need to do. We're certainly looking forward to it. I mean, it's nostalgia from my point of view. We're going to look back on the Gaffers era after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the Football Show here on Sky Sports. Last week we were talking about Manchester United. This week we are paying tribute to the champions, Leeds United. We're in the company of, from the far side there, Johnny Giles, Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter, just over Norman's left shoulder, the FA Championship trophy, and Barry Foster here of the Yorkshire Post, who's covered Leeds for 25 years, seen it all in that time. That trophy, incidentally, we hear, could be the last season that it's awarded. That might become the second division championship trophy from next year onwards. I can't believe that, gentlemen, can you?
I think you can believe anything nowadays. If it's Premier League's been formed, and it's mostly about money now, and I think tradition and the things that we valued in the game will go by the board in lots of ways, and that's one of them.
It'd be a tragedy, wouldn't it? That's the championship trophy, isn't it? Always has been. So there we are, it's progress, I suppose. Let's piece together the legend then, shall we? 1961, Don Revie took over a very ordinary second division club, didn't he?
It's good, isn't it?
And this was the record down the years. I mean, it really was quite extraordinary, really. 2 championships. Promoted in 64 as second division champions, a cup final in 65, the first of those titles in 69, the last in 74, won the League Cup in 68, Fairs Cup in 68 and 71, Cup Winners' Cup final, which was lost, 2 Fairs Cup finals, runners up 5 times in the league, and lost the FA Cup on 3 different occasions. Some record. Why was that Leeds United team universally disliked outside Allen Road?
I think maybe because of the early years, obviously, because I mean, people were saying, well, we're a relatively young team. We came up in, I think, 64, and then for the period leading up to 69, we were involved in certain matches that weren't for the connoisseurs, and we went out and we battled each other. And so therefore, I think they're in politics, by the way. I think everybody was everybody looked at us, and after 69, I think from 69 onwards, and I think they still didn't forgive that initial period. From 69 to 74, I think we probably played, well, I certainly enjoyed playing with the team. They probably played the best football that I feel that this country's seen for a long time. But because of what going on in the past, and the discrepancies we had gotten into, people obviously...
Well, what have you got into? I mean, well, I think we're all making it.
I think there's no doubt, in the early days, when we came from the second division, we went, a lot of young lads, players in the side. Don't forget, the basis of the side was still the same after 7 or 8 years. Billy, Norman, Paul Magley, Paul Reaney, Terry Cooper, Eddie Gray, Peter Lama. They were all in the club at that time when we got promoted from the second division. Some of them went in the first team, but they eventually got into the first team. So that was the basis of the team for future years. Now, there's no doubt when we came out of the second division, we scrambled a lot, and we played scrambly football. very tenacious, very resilient in what we're doing, and at times too naughty for our own good. There's no doubt about that.
We did agree with telling me that he the first time he went up there, I think he came out of a tunnel and got kicked on the way out.
Yeah, well, like Jimmy, I'll tell you what I don't like sometimes, and sometimes I don't say it. All the things that they say about Leeds, the bad things they say about it. And Georgie Best was on one time with Rodney Marsh, and I thought they were very gracious to say the least. They knew as players that we were a great team. We weren't loved and we weren't liked outside of Leeds, as you say.
You can't
but
take that away
inside the
from
game,
United.
inside the game, with Georgie Best, and this is what I object to at times when some players who come on and talk on the show, is that they will pander to the public opinion of the perception of Leeds to the public. But they know that Leeds were a respected team and were the best team in the country for about 5 or 6 seasons. And they were the team to emulate by the other teams. And the players, Rodney Marsh, Georgie Best, and other players know that. And they still know it in their heart. But to get back to the original point you were talking about, why we were disliked. We were disliked because we did things that we shouldn't have done in the early days. We were too many gamesmanship stuff, too many fouls. There's no doubt about that. But as the years went by, we stopped almost all of that. We could still look after ourselves, and we could handle ourselves with the best. But we became very successful as well. And when teams become successful, there was a lot of envy in the game. We weren't liked, but we were well respected in the game, and people who came to see us in droves outside of Leeds, in London particularly, enjoyed what Leeds had to offer. Unfortunately for us, give a dog a bad name, and that's what happened to us, and it stayed on for too long.
It's stuck, all right. Yeah, Terry York, I noticed today, in fact, talking about the current team being as good as
No, you couldn't really
the great
say that.
Leeds United team. Personally, I think that's a little unfair.
You can't really compare the two sides. If you're going to compare the present Leeds side, you've really got to compare it with the side that went into the First Division in 1964 and in fact went to a closer and thing with Manchester United in the 64-65 season. It finished up a goal average situation and went into extra time in the FA Cup final with Liverpool. If you're going to compare today's side, you've got to compare it with that side. Well, I don't think there's a great... Possibly today's side is better than that particular side, but today's side has got some history to build on. That side had no history to build on.
That's right. So tell us about the history then. Tell us about the gaffer.
See, well, we had in that side, as we progressed and got better, there was world-class players in that side that just weren't, not in the Football League, but they could have gone to any team in the world and played in that side without any problems. And the young side, the side they've got now, all right, they've done well, they've won the title, but then we can judge them in say 5 or 6 years' time if they've got an FA Cup underneath them, if they've got a few trophies underneath their belts. Then you can start making a comparison if they can continue what they've done. And they did it quicker than we did. It took us about 4 or 5 years before we won the title, and Howard's done it now 2 years into the second division.
Yeah, but in saying that, I mean, you've got to defend the gaffer here, because I mean Howard's done it in 3 or 4 years, but Howard's had the financial means to be able to do it. I mean, when the gaffer took over our club, I remember even as a young kid, Everton came in and offered 25,000 for me, about 18-year-old, and the gaffer says to me at the time they were 250,000 in debt. So he had to build from scratch. And they didn't have any history up to the gaffer coming. Our club's history, we keep saying about the great history of Leeds United. The history of Leeds United is since the gaffer started and built that team, and he built that team from scratch. Now, all right, people say he may have been a bit fortunate. He got 4 or 5 members out of the youth team, and he did. But he had the foresight to go and buy John Giles, who was, I think, 20-year-old at the time, from Manchester United for a fee of 35,000, which was a steal at that time. And he knew that he didn't want John then. This was the man's great vision. He knew he knew John was a great player, even as a young kid, but he didn't want him for the midfield, because he knew Bobby Collins was still there, but he knew Bob maybe had a year left of him, and then John was eventually going to slot into the middle of the pack and become the inspirational player that he was for us.
When did you talk about wandering around Ellen Road as a young lad, when did you start to get the feeling, the belief that Don was sowing the seeds of greatness?
Well, I think we were starting to develop, and I remember John calling to a club, and I remember John saying, you know, what he was through when he first joined the club and seeing all these young guys. I mean, I think we were 12 months between John and us, so we were all about 18, 19, 20-year-old. And John said he was very impressed as soon as he came into the club and seen the talent they had at that youth, at such a young side, and he knew, like, maybe we can go on to greatness. We weren't great then, but maybe we can go on to greatness.
I felt, as soon as I went to Leeds, that there was, having come from Manchester United, who were regarded as a great club then, that there was a great drive about the Leeds club from Don Revie down. And the players, I mean, Norman was brought up in the club, Billy was brought up in the club, they wouldn't have realised it, in my opinion, at the time. But as an outsider coming in, I could see it. There was a great drive to talk about the game, to pay attention to detail. This was the new breed in football, where there was more thought given to the game, more planning to the game, and the players had a drive in which to do it. Like coming from Old Trafford, Matt Busby was the older type who let it run along and depended on the players to do it. But it leads, Don Revie brought the game forward, in my opinion, and in fact we challenged Manchester United the following season with players that we'd no right really at times to be on the park with them. But I think Barry made a very good point in judging the present Leeds team with the 64-65 team. Again, a different era. When Don Revie was building the team, he had the advantage of no freedom of contract. We were tied to the club whether we wanted to or not. So the team only became great after about 7 or 8 years.
But he could keep everybody there.
He could keep it together.
Yeah.
Now, Howard Wilkinson, there's a legacy from the Don Revie era, is that there's a fanatical support now, which was never there. There's a lovely stadium there. There was money available for him to do what he has done. And that is the modern way. No manager there was going to get 7 or 8 years to build a team. And they have to buy it nowadays. And winning the league now, getting into Europe, giving them the resources to improve the team.
Leeds United were one of the first, you tell me how I should use the word, professional teams, weren't they? But was that something you took pride in? Or was that something that you winced perhaps at? In terms of...
Depends what way it was used. Well, professionalism in certain ways was used as a derogatory remark rather than a complimentary. But I think there's...
I meant it in a complimentary sense.
No, I wasn't talking about your issue, but I'm talking about people generally. If they said professional. But what Don Revie brought to the game, in my opinion, was... I don't think you're coming from the 50s, where there wasn't much thought given to the game. I know from Old Trafford, there wasn't much thought given to the game in the way that Don Revie was giving it. Things that we would take for granted now, not letting players get behind full-backs, attention to detail, defending, and all those things, that's part of the game today. That wasn't always there, and he was one of the forerunners.
What was he like, Norman? What was Don Revie like?
Well, you look back as you get a little bit older. I thought his handling of each individual was superb, you know, and as Johnny says, his attention to detail. Nothing went by, everything was correct. We trained, and the amazing thing about Leeds was that the group of players he had, I've never, in all the years I've been in the game, met a more dedicated set of lads who had one aim, that was to keep themselves fit, and that was to play. And we talked about the game, we cared about the game, and this was all down to the gaffer's attitude. He was always there, and his man management of us all. When you think eventually he had 16 internationals at one time, and he kept us all there, and hardly anybody ever wanted to leave the club, and his man management was superb.
I think one of the big secrets of that particular side was that most of them grew up together, and there were lads in the youth team, and they came right through, and they stuck, that side more or less stuck together right the way through. John joined Leeds, apart from that, Mick Jones and Alan Clark were the only really big signings. There was very little change in that time. But going back to drawing comparisons, I think if there's one comparison with this present setup to the one in Don Revie's time, it's the attention to detail that both Howard Wilkinson puts into his game, and the attention to detail that Revie did. Because there was nothing that Revie forgot, and they will tell you that whenever it was a birthday or an anniversary, there were flowers there, Christmas cards, and that went not just for the players, but that went for everyone closely connected to the club. And there was a real family atmosphere about Leeds United at that time. Well, today, you'll find that Howard Wilkinson doesn't forget things. His attention to detail is absolutely phenomenal.
Does make you wonder what he can go on to achieve. We'll talk about that later in the programme. 69. Here's a piece of history. The programme from Anfield, where you secured the title, signed in fact by Don Revie, 9pence that cost. What was that like, winning the title first time round?
Brilliant, wasn't it?
It was a tremendous night because, I mean, we knew if we go there and we get the draw, it was going to be ours. And I remember distinctly having, after the game, I remember it being a very difficult game, as it always is with Liverpool, but I remember after the game we went to the Cop End and they applauded us, which was tremendous. And the thing more than anything, I remember Shanks coming in after the game. And Shanks is not the best at giving compliments, but he wasn't the best at giving compliments out to other teams. But I remember him coming in that night and saying, a credit to the game. He says you've thoroughly deserved the championship. You've been the best team this year. From coming from him, who only spoke about Liverpool, that was a tremendous.
I thought the best team drew, though, didn't he?
The best team.
I think you have to say, but he was good. But 60. Funny enough, Richard, on 69 when we went to Anfield that night, we had 64 points that night.
Yeah.
And we still hadn't won it.
Check this and tell them. Go on, no, you carry on. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, 64 points. Yeah.
We finished up with a record 67. So we never won anything easily. When we did win things in our day, it was done the hard way.
Why did you miss out on so much?
Well, because I think the major is what James just says. I mean, people say about the championship, who can win the championship now? I mean, to be fair, until Leeds came on this year, you've seen that Manchester United to a certain extent, it's been Arsenal, Liverpool, the two teams. I don't know, you check your records, we maybe lost the championship 5 times. I bet you're up to 5 different teams. They went to like Liverpool or to Everton, because Liverpool won the championship, Everton, Arsenal, Derby County. They're all different teams, sorry? Man United, 5 or 6 different teams. Yeah, it could win the championship, so there was no game you went to when you played in the first division, you think, oh, well, we're going to Joe Blogg's on Saturday, that'll be a doddle, we'll come there, we'll win 2 or 3. Every game you went to, it was always going to be a hard game.
But didn't you think in that 1969 season, Billy, that there was a kind of inevitability about Leeds winning that title? It just seemed to be that no one was going to beat you.
I don't know.
Only 2 games
we only got beat 5-0 at Burnley. We got beat 3-0 at Man City. We thought somebody was going to beat us there.
I wish somebody had told us that. It would have saved us a lot of sweat and water. We'd got to Arsenal and we'd got to Anfield, we had Manchester City at home. We were sweating on them, I can tell you that.
I'm just questioning to you now, the match at Burnley was the 7th away match of that season, and we lost it 5-1.
Yeah.
Do you know how many goals you conceded for the rest of the season in the remaining 14 away matches that season?
About 8.
You lost the one at 5-1 at Burnley.
Yeah, 3-1 at 3-1.
Another 5 goals in the rest of the season you conceded. I mean, that
it was a remarkable achievement. I think that goes to the sign of the times in those days, Richard. When we won the championship, we created 3 records. We scored 67 points, 2 defeats in 42, and we were the lowest goals for that ever won the First Division. And the headlines in all the papers were, Leeds win the First Division with the lowest goals ever. That's how well we won. That's how well we won.
That's how popular we were.
I just go back to, I have to mention the Terry Orth comment. Terry, like anybody else, is entitled to his opinion, and I respect his opinion. But what he said in the paper this morning was that the players are much fitter now and are better athletes. Now, they might well be better athletes, but they're certainly not better players. And I'm surprised at his comments, because if Gordon Strachan, who is a similar type of to Billy and myself, is one of the major players in the First Division today and one of the major factors in Leeds winning the championship, I think I think most people would say that Billy or myself could play equally as well today as we could 20-odd years ago, if it's just on physique alone on that. And that's what I can't understand. There's too much attention, in my opinion, paid today to athleticism rather than ability.
Yeah, I think you'd find a lot of support for that argument. Just before we go to the break, what was it like playing with this fellow in your team?
Norman, he was a great player.
He was a great player. I'm telling you, people don't. I'd be more stick than anybody in the park. But I tell you what, Norman was a world-class player, and people don't realise how much ability he actually had on the ball. He was a superb leader in the situation. He couldn't run. I'm telling you what, he wasn't the quickest I've ever seen him. I wasn't the quickest I've ever seen him. But I tell you what, if we had situations at Leeds when we used to have 1v1, we used to do that a lot. 1v1, a defender against an attacker.
Who was the brave man who took him on?
Well, anybody take it, but it was a waste of time taking him, because he was a tremendous player. You could leave him 1v1 at the back and no way would any get past him. The fallacy and the thing people keep saying, Norman bites your leg, Norman Hunter's a hard player, Norman Hunter's this, Norman. They forget Norman Hunter, when he had the ball, could play. He could not only win the ball and he could head the ball. When he actually got the ball, he could actually play.
And he did like legs as well.
Norman could play your legs better than anybody else.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, what happens in football, it still happens today, is that they tag players. Like when Dave Mackay played with the great Spurs team, he was known as the Tank. Danny Blanchflower was the creative player. But in fact, Dave Mackay was just as creative as Danny Blanchflower. Exactly. Now in our day, Billy was regarded as the fiery captain. I was the midfield general. Now, Norman couldn't be a great player as well in that. It had to be something else. And he was tagged with being a hard man and kicking people. Now, there were times he did that as well. But that was overlooked. That was overlooked with his ability and his greatness was overlooked. And I would have no doubt in calling Norman Hunter best.
The combination of the side was that my best qualities was to win the ball, right? And then when I won the ball, I was told every time, you win the ball and give it to those who could play. And if I give it to him, he told me off. If I give it to him, he told me off. But it wasn't a bad option to have as a defender, was it?
That sounds very simple in its way, to build a team like that. But where Norman was great was, Norman was humble enough that when he won the ball time after time, he would give it to you time after time. Whereas other players in other teams might win the ball and go, that's too simple to give. Yes. I've won it so many times, why should I give it to him? That's what makes a great team, is everybody playing their part in that team.
We had one in the team that would do that. We wouldn't give you.
Big Jack would say, you get up there, I can do what you can do. But he was outrageous, you know. He'd pass it, he'd try to hit a ball and knock it up into the stand. But
Big Jack was across the attacking centre half, wasn't he? Yeah. With his amazing runs.
But Jack had his own great qualities as well.
We're talking
about that particular aspect of his game.
Okay, part 3. What went wrong? Because it did, didn't it? 18 years in the wilderness. You're watching a Footballers Football Show. Memories of 73 here at Wembley. Some of them, of course, were the winners, but just have a look down the line with us here. A bit more hair and a few more sideboards in those days, boys.
The sideboards, look at these.
Here's Norman, ready for the off?
Yeah. Against Sunderland, no.
Tracksuit tops, isn't it?
Nice match you took there.
We took to London for this.
So 18 years trying to put that back there.
I just thought it was nice to see the faces. This is when Leeds were at their peak. And this end, of course, the gaffer, the great man, Don Revie. Take a short break. Stay with us. I'm watching the Footballers Football Show. Now then, Johnny Giles, Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter and Barry Foster here, who works for the Yorkshire Post, watched Leeds for 25 years. 1974, and it all started to fall apart, didn't it? Brian Clough, not his fault, I heard quickly, but Brian Clough was appointed to follow the gaffer. Didn't last long. Billy, what happened?
Well, I mean, obviously, when he came, he's come to a football club that's done well the previous year, and he's come in, and it's always a difficult act to follow when a very successful manager leaves. And when Brian came in, obviously results didn't go well in the early stages, and contrary to what a lot of people say about player power or whatever, I don't think the players can ever reproach themselves in anything that ever happened in that period of time that the manager was at.
That's why I was the captain, Norm, you see. He's, I mean, you genuinely believe that? Because we've read so much, haven't we?
Well, I think you can read. There's been lots of written. I think Brian Clough himself has written a book about it. But in recent years, it's the first time that I've ever heard Brian actually say that he could have made some mistakes himself when he came to Leeds. I think the original mistake was by the board who appointed Brian Clough in the first place, because he had been an outspoken critic of the Leeds team and Don Revie in particular during his time at Derby. I think so. When he came in, he tried to change a lot of things in a bad-mannered way at Leeds and upset the players very much. So despite what you read afterwards about power and everything else, I think 90% of that was nonsense. And I think Brian, the way he handled the situation, deserved to be sacked in the long run.
Were you surprised that the board went for him, Barry?
It was a surprise in the first place, but I've always believed that having made that decision, then they should have stuck. The board should have stuck with it. It was no one can turn a club round in 44 days. I go along with the thinking there that.
But Barry, excuse me, Barry, didn't he turn him round? We just were
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, but. I just don't think that he was given sufficient time.
I think you've got some support from Norman Hunter there.
Well, no, all I'm saying is that there was all this talk about player power and everything else, but nothing could have been done. If the directors had wanted Brian Clough to stay at Ellen Road, he would have stayed. I think it was probably their decision, as Johnny says. They've probably made a mistake in appointing him. The players, if the directors had said, you play football, just get on with things, then Brian Clough could have still been at Leeds. You never know.
I think we were used manipulated a bit by the directors, in Manny Cousins and whoever was there, I can't forget now, who was the vice chairman in those days, in that I think after a certain period of time they wanted to get rid of Brian Clough, which they could have done. We had no say in the appointment of Brian Clough, and we had no say in the departure of Brian Clough. But we were used and we were put in a certain position by the directors with Brian Clough that we were the ones who appeared to be.
Do you think he shook the boardroom up rather more than he did the dressing room?
No, I don't think he did. I don't think he had time to come in. But I must say, and I think we all agree with this, that Brian Clough, in my opinion, has been a great man in football. And I think if he had come in and approached the job in a different way to the way he did, he would still be at Leeds today. I think his football at Forest and the way he's handled the team and the values that he's given that team and the club, I think if every manager of every club followed what he has done at Forest, we would have a much healthier game.
Yeah, that's food for thought as well, isn't it? Jimmy Arthur, who of course went to a European Cup final with Leeds United, building on obviously what Don had done the previous year.
Yeah,
unlucky to lose that as well.
Yeah, Jim, to be fair, did reasonably well. He's probably, I mean, he achieved something obviously our own all boss didn't achieve, and that was take us to the European Cup final. But I think Jim will be the first to admit, and he will admit, that the players really got there to the European Cup final because we had earmarked it because we had been written off against Sunderland in '73, and then we came back and won the championship, and I think we were destined to go to the European Cup final. And he did a reasonable job whilst he was at Ellen Road. There again, I think I don't know where he finished in the league when they dismissed him, but like John says, there are not many football managers stay at football clubs for a period of time.
Of course, there was the Cup as well, wasn't there, in between?
Yeah. I think there's no doubt that when Don Revie left Leeds to go to England, the club was gone.
That was it.
The club as we knew it was gone.
Did you feel that then? Or are you saying
yes?
That's
we felt that because
you
had it. The lads would bear it up. That he had this thing about him. He had this aura about him. I mean, he didn't really need to have to be at the football ground, Rich. I mean, he could have been in Scotland. He could have been anywhere and visit. But he was there. His presence was always there, and that was always going to be a difficult act.
Anybody try to stop him going? Anybody? I mean, you as skipper, did you have words and say?
You have words like it's like he had words with me when he came down. He said, "I've been offered the England job, and what do you think the boys would feel about it? Blah blah blah." And knowing for a fact, if I says to him like, the boys feel as though you should stay here, he'd say, "Well, that's very kind of the lads, but I'm going to England anyway."
You've got to take the England job, though, haven't you? If you get it.
Yeah, you better. I think what happened as well. I think the Leeds directors could have kept him in those days. I don't think they bent over backwards to keep him. It does happen in football clubs. Directors, when they have a successful manager, do become jealous of the manager, because when you're a successful manager, as Don Revie was, there was no real need for the directors, and directors weren't getting any credit.
Somebody else was running their club.
Exactly. I remember one of the directors saying one time, Bill, "How is it Don Revie gets all the credit and we never get a mention?" He did actually say that, and that's the way they did think. And Don wasn't the most diplomatic with the directors either. He treated them pretty sharply, didn't he? Mm-hmm. At times, on a personal level. And I think when the time came for him to go, the attitude at least that time was, get rid of him. We've got a great team now. We've got a good stadium. And as a lot of directors do think, anybody can run the show now.
Having heard what Billy had to say, that he would have gone anyway if the players had said, hang on. If the directors had said, Don, you can't go, would he have gone anyway?
Yeah, but you've got to give him that opportunity, haven't you? I mean, if the director says to you, look, Donald, we want you to sign like another 15-year contract here, and we want to keep you so badly that whatever you feel you want to be with the football club, because they must have known how indebted they were to the chap who took over a club that, as you said earlier in the programme, were a very poor club. Like I said, they were worse than very poor club. They were a hopeless club.
A ramshackle.
Well, they were, until he came along and his organisation and his vision for the football club. I mean, I remember him coming and talking to me as a young player and saying to me things like, we're going to wear white, Billy, because one day we're going to be Real Madrid, like Real Madrid. I said, the man must be obviously. Like, Real Madrid, who nearly brought me to second division, like, we aging players on our team. And we never looked as though we were going to go, but he had that vision. So then for the directors just to let him go so easily when he says he was going to England, they should have fought with everything they had at their disposal to keep him at the football club.
Yeah, it was the opposite to that, though. So they didn't, not that they fought to keep him, they just said, off you go. Because I spoke to him afterwards when he was ill, and he said if he'd had the right offer from Leeds and the right financial backing, he wouldn't have gone with England.
They could have had the continuity, of course, because it seemed at the time when he actually went to England that John was going to get the job. In fact, I wrote it.
And you're still working?
I'm still working. So, I mean, I was very surprised when they went for Brian Clough. But
were you going to get the job? Had anyone told you about that?
No, what happened was when I came back from the 74 World Cup, I was over watching it, and Don Revie said that he was going to recommend me for the job. And that he'd have word with Manny Cousins and a few of the directors. But in fact what happened, when he was recommending me for the job, they turned down his recommendation. And in fact it is sometimes the kiss of death for any manager who's been given a recommendation by the present manager, because the last thing they want is another recommendation from the present manager. What directors basically want to do is say, look, we're running the show, it's our club, you're on your way now, we'll make the big decision.
So wish you had managed Leeds, is that a
No,
sort of regret?
I have no regrets about it at all. I think if I'd taken the job at that stage, I probably would have had to finish playing, when in fact I've played for another 3 or 4 years after that and enjoyed it. I never sought the job. It was a surprise to me that Don Revie was telling me that he was recommending me for the job.
See, Richard, that's a point Johnny's just made there. The manager that followed Don Revie, they tried to split the team up far too quickly. It should have been done gradually over a period of time. But Johnny went on and played 3.5 years. Billy went on and played another 2.5, 3 years. I did exactly the same. Terry Cooper, where gradually they come in. Brian Clough came in and tried to change it quickly. Jimmy Anfield did the same. And there was still a lot of years and a lot of good football left in those players that remained. All right, gradually we'd have known we'd had to go, but I think they're trying to get rid of a few of them.
See, the vision that he had, Richard, we're talking about his great vision about what he planned for the future and everything. I mean, I remember him saying to me, and I know he told Norman, he planned like, you know, when you get to, he says, when you get about 33, 34, Billy, he says, you're obviously thinking about retirement. He says, I want to sign you and like Norman and our older players to sign you on 3 or 4 year contracts to play with the reserves, just to bring them on. And that's wise. People fear older players because they fear them because they're getting to the end of their career and they think, oh, Christ, it might be after my job here. He was the opposite. He could see advantage of having his older, experienced players in the reserves, bringing his younger players.
And he was secure in that knowledge. He was secure in that.
I knew that.
As Norman said, I think, I know when I was the first to go of us three from Leeds, when Jimmy Anfield sold me to West Brom in the summer. And I just played my last match for Leeds, in fact, was the European Cup final. And I felt that I had more to offer the club at that stage, but as Norman says, managers do get an opinion. The players get older. We've got to make changes, and out you go. But what a lot of people forget at Leeds, and some of the managers did, in my opinion, was that the players we had at Leeds were exceptional players by any standards. Great players, great professionals, very dedicated, and very professional in their approach to the job.
But we'll take a break here. There's a few more managers that we haven't mentioned yet. We're going to have to before we leave this alone. But right now, breaks pressing. That's where we're going. Stay where you are. Johnny Giles, Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter and Barry Foster, our guests here on the Footballers Football Show. The League Championship trophy away in the background, which will be presented at Elland Road this coming Saturday, of course. A few more managers we haven't touched upon. We won't get time to go into all of this in depth. But Jock Stein, 44 days. Jimmy Adamson, the last manager before Howard Wilkinson, to take the club into Europe. 3 ex-players, Alan Clark, Eddie Gray, Billy Bremner, who before Howard I think was arguably the most successful of anybody. Jock Stein, what happened, Barry?
It was a bit like the Clough situation. He was there and gone even before we really knew it. But Scotland came in, and it was an opportunity.
The lure for Scotland with Jock was the same as it was England and Don, wasn't it?
I would have thought so.
Yes,
I would have thought.
Jimmy Adamson, who took the club into Europe in a couple of seasons.
Yes, well, he was. Jimmy was part of a run of managers, and no one really got time to really settle in. And I think that's been
time or money.
Well, time or money. I think that's been the problem, really. It's something like 8 managers in 14 years. I think they had. No one really got a chance to show what they could do. But it was a very dull period for most of it.
What about the theory that turning to the old players might bring back some success? Alan Clark, Eddie Gray, Billy, the FA Cup semi-final, the playoffs. You were so close, Bill, weren't you, in that season? The replayed game against Charlton Athletic.
And sometimes I wish I'd only had 44 days.
It seemed like 44 years, did it? But Alan went down under Alan.
It did seem that when the old players came in that that the thing would be lifted. I mean, there was a great atmosphere about the place. But somehow it just never happened until Bill came, and really they got to within touching distance of the First Division again. I mean, it was a very, very close run thing in the Charlton match at Birmingham that night, and of course they got to the semi-final the same year of the FA Cup. Another late defeat for them. I thought it was unlucky in the end. I mean, if things had happened there, well, you know, perhaps it would be Billy Bremner that would be manager of the league champions now.
I think Norman's again agree.
Well, I agree with that, but see, Billy and Eddie, for some reason, best known to the board, didn't get the finance, didn't get the backing, because the money wasn't there. I can remember talking to Bill on a few occasions, and he had to go out and probably to the lower divisions to get players and try and bring them on, because the money just wasn't there for them. And that applied. All right, Alan had a bit of money to spend, but as far as Eddie and especially Billy goes, they just didn't have the money to spend. It wasn't there.
I think there was a definite change of policy when Howard Wilkinson was appointed. There's no doubt Leslie Silver, who was chairman of the board, somehow or other got the money to give Howard to go for the second division championship. Well, he spent a lot of money in the second division, Howard, and he spent it well, and he deserves it, and I think it was the right thing to do. But you have to weigh up the success of managers like Eddie and Billy against what was available.
Against the frustrations that they had. Yeah.
3 years ago this month, Leslie Silver, Bill Fotherby, Howard Wilkinson and the Vice Chairman, Peter Gilman, sat round the table and they decided to go for it. Spend a lot of money, big gamble, but, well, it's history now, but the champions...
You must have told them that, though, Billy. You must have said there's only one way that this club can ever get out of the second division, that is to spend big, think big, be big.
Yeah, it's easier saying that than carrying out that sort of instructions, you know, because, I mean, I was always in a situation where, I mean, at the end of the day, you wouldn't have to expect to sell your better players to be able to enhance the team. And that's the situation I had with Ian Snodden, you know, you have to let Ian go to try and get 2 or 3 other players to come into the football club, because obviously there wasn't the resources there at the time, and where they come from, I don't know, but like I say, that's history anyway. I mean, you only get to be bitter about anything is a waste of time.
Your Leeds men through and through, all of you, so you're delighted to see them back on top of the pile. What sort of club do you think Howard is building at Leeds United?
Well, in view of what I said before about him being a deep thinker and planning everything to the last inch, I would think that there's every chance now that this club will go on and possibly stay the kind of distance that it did under Don Revie.
Oh, that's heaping some pressure.
Well, the thing is that the man plans ahead. He's already thinking about next season. He was thinking about next season even before the Sheffield United match. He has a vision in his own mind what he wants to do, and he thinks very, very carefully about it.
Is it true he took all the pictures of the boys down, the great years, which has been a burden at Manchester United, as we heard last year, living up to the reputation? What's he done with all these pictures?
Well, they've been moved around.
Well, I don't know. I don't know, because you know, you better let it go down there. But I'd heard it and read about it that you had done, you know, which I thought at the time, and none of the players have ever commented on it, because they've had many an opportunity to comment on it. I thought it was a bit of an insult to the players that play for Leeds United, because you go to Liverpool, you go to Manchester United, you go to Everton, when you're walking up the staircase there's always photographs of the old teams, no matter where they are. And to take the photographs down, I thought was, you know...
I understand that, but from his point of view...
I can understand
his argument was
that was an intimidating the presence.
Absolutely, yes.
But I mean, that's at every football club. Every football club has a tradition. They have some things to look back on, and that's obviously one of the things that Leeds United had to look back on with the old team that played.
But for me, it suggested that he was very much his own man. That he'd do things Howard's way.
You can look at it 2 ways. You could say, well, he's his own man for taking them down, or he may be insecure for taking them down. I think myself that the photograph should have been left up on the walls, and to be quite honest, on a personal level, I don't really care whether my photograph there, or Billy, I don't really care whether my photograph is there or not. I'm never in the place, and it doesn't really mean anything to me whether my photograph's on the wall with the rest of the lads or not. But I think for a tradition, the club should be proud of its traditions. Any club. whether it be Liverpool, Arsenal, and you know the Marble Halls of Arsenal has always been traditional, and all the great teams are honoured and revered, and I think that's the way it should be.
It'd be nice if they put them back up, actually, wouldn't it? Thinking about it now that they've won the title, that might be the right thing to do.
I think the press and everything else made a song and dance about it. Like the lads said, we're not bothered. We've got the memories, we've done it, and to have a few photographs up on the wall at Leeds, it doesn't really mean anything.
What do you, I mean, the one big prize that Don would have loved to have had a crack at, he didn't, as we've said. He didn't win it, the European Cup. Can this Leeds United go on and be as great as Barry said? Can they win the European Cup?
I think a lot depends on what Howard does now, but if he follows the pattern of previous seasons, I would think that he would spend quite a lot of money this year, bring 2 or 3 what people loosely call world-class players into the side, and with the present state of football, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't do well anyway.
What do you think?
I think it's unfair to compare the Wilkinson era now with the Don Revie era in certain ways, in that Don had time to build up a great team and we matured into a great team. What's happened today now, it's more checkbook football than you'll never build a team like we had. Actually build one. You might create one through the checkbook. And what's the legacy for Howard Wilkinson from Don Revie is that he's got a fine stadium with a fanatical support, which will give him the financial backing now to get the players that's needed to do it. And there's no reason whatsoever, in my opinion, that if he gets the right players during the summer, then they can win the European Cup. It's like the old insensitive chairman coming in after the match when the team got promotion. He said, well done lads, you've done great, now we can buy better players. And, that's the same situation with Howard now. The players have done well for him, but as Barry says, he'd be looking ahead and he'd be looking to improve the team straight away. Sentiment will be out the window.
Great to see you all. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Johnny Giles, Billy Bremner, Norman Hunter and Barry here at this end. Enjoy the party at the weekend. I'm sure that Ellen Road will. The next time you'll see the trophy will be at Ellen Road. Short break.